Welcome back to my channel for my weekly Human Design Transit Report. And today is Monday, February 28th. And the current transit that we're in, I talked about quite a bit last week. So if you want to find out more about that, you can just go ahead and watch that video right here. Just briefly, let me say that the sun is in the gate 37 and the earth is in the gate 40. And together they create a channel called the Channel of the Bargain. And this is tribal circuitry, and it's really about how do we create agreements with each other that I like to think of as being mutually beneficial. This is pillar number 7 of feminine sovereignty, mutually beneficial collaborations or agreements or contracts, ways that we come together to create understandings about how do we operate together as people that are part of a tribe. So I encourage you to take advantage of that today and tomorrow before the sun and the earth move again. If you have any unspoken agreements, or if you have any misunderstandings, or any ways that you might be feeling some friction, to go ahead and address it now, because you'll have all the energetic support that you need in order to be able to do that. Then on Wednesday, March 2nd, can you believe it's March already? I know. Okay. March 2nd, the sun is going to move into the gate 63 and the earth is going to move into the gate 64. You can see from this image that these are both on the head center. The 63 is the beginning of the logic circuit or the understanding circuit or the pattern circuit. And the 64 is the beginning of the sensing circuit or the miracle circuit. And these are both collective circuitry. So let's pause for a moment and consider that. Collective circuitry is the circuitry that really has to do with big things in life. It has to do with infrastructure or with governments or with the global situations. It's kind of like the meeting of the tribes. It's the way that things get spread out over the globe, right? That's collective circuitry. And we have both that are happening here. Now, the beginning of the logic circuit is left brain energy, and the beginning of the sensing circuit is right brain energy. And so we need both of these in order to be able to function effectively in the world. I just watched an interview with Bolte Tayler. You might know her. She is the first person to ever have a TED Talk go viral. This was a while ago, like 8 or 9 years ago, with my stroke of insight. She's a neuroanatomist, so she does an anatomy of the brain. And she had a stroke that destroyed the left part of her brain. And so she just completely went into the right side of her brain. And so it's a brilliant TED Talk. She had a best-selling book. Now, this is her next book, which is called Whole Brain Living. And it's absolutely fascinating about the anatomy of the right brain and the left brain. And so I haven't read the book yet, but I encourage you, if you want to find out more about it, you can just Google her, find her on YouTube. She's got a bunch of videos, and I'll be letting you know more about that as time goes on. But she basically is saying that we have both a thinking brain on both the left and the right brain, and we also have an emotional brain on both sides. So here we are with energy coming in through our right brain and our left brain in this week coming up. And you'll get to have the opportunity to be paying attention to this activation of your left brain and your right brain even more, particularly if they're not defined in your chart. They're not defined in my chart. So I'm going to be paying attention to what those are like, and to see what does that open up for me as a possibility. What is happening in my neurology, and what starts to become available to me. Now, the gate 63, as I said, is the beginning of the logic circuit or the pattern circuit. And it's what we think of as left brain energy, right? It is strategic, it's logical, it's analytical, it's planning, and so on. And in traditional human design, it is named doubt. And in quantum human design, it's named curiosity. Well, I love that. I love curiosity because really the beginning of all science The best science begins with curiosity. Like, you notice something that's happening in the natural world, and then you get curious about it, and you're like, Then you create a hypothesis. I wonder if this is the case. I'm observing this. I wonder if that's true. And then I'm going to go and do experiments, and I'm going to see if I can prove that it's true or not. So the scientific method, the Western scientific method as we know it, lives in the logic circuit. And their best science always begins with curiosity. It doesn't begin with doubt. I mean, think about doubt. Doubt is kind of like, prove it to me, right? It's like that skeptical part of your mind. It's the part of you that is trying to keep you safe, often by keeping you kind of small and sequestered and not going into a lot of new territory, not going into unknown places, sticking to what you know and doubting whether other things are really of value. Whereas curiosity is much more open. It's much more expansive. And not only is the sun in the gate 63, but so is Jupiter. Jupiter has actually been there for a little while. Now the sun is joining him. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion, right? In human design, we consider Jupiter your blessings, the place of your blessings. But he's really like this expansive, kind of jovial energy associated often with abundance or prosperity, which can sometimes go into gluttony or, just kind of, it can lead to hoarding. It can go into too muchness also. So you need to watch out for that part. But in curiosity is awesome. It's one of the things that makes us alive. It creates a joie de vivre. It's a core component of who we are as human beings, is the way that we're curious about things, whether we're curious about each other, whether we're curious about ourselves, whether we're curious about the natural world, whether we're curious about, like for me, I'm can't wait to read this new book because I'm curious about neuroscience and about how the brain works. I'm not a particularly scientific person, and yet there are aspects of it that I get really interested in. So then the Earth is lighting up the gate 64, which is the beginning of the sensing circuit, and that's right brain energy. So it's more creative, it's expansive, whereas left brain energy is more focal, tends to be more focused. The right brain energy is more expansive. It doesn't really have boundaries. It's much more connected to the unified field, or what in the yoga traditions we'd call the great womb of life. That kind of sense of the all that is. And it's experiential and it's embodied, like to experience things through the body, like to have that sense of what does it feel like? What is the felt sense like? And it's not analytical. It's not strategic. It's not linear. It's none of those things. It's very, very different. And this is why we need both, right? Because both are very valuable. In traditional human design, the 64 is known as confusion. And in quantum human design, it's been renamed as divine transference. I think the more traditional names for both the 63 and the 64 are kind of a drag, really, right? Doubt and confusion. So confusion, the beginning of the sensing circuit, I guess I can kind of understand that in the sense that we can have downloads coming in through that right brain that our logical brain does not understand, right? And that can be confusing for us because it can come in as images, it can come in as feelings. It's not necessarily something that we can quantify or replicate or anything like that. It's a very different kind of energy. So I love that Karen Curry Parker has renamed it as divine transference, because that is really what all of these three gates in the head are. Is there are ways that we are plugged into superconsciousness, and each one of them has their own quality. And so that 64 being that right brain energy that's connected to the sensing circuit is really balancing out that left brain energy that's much more linear. As I said before, we really need both sides of our brain, right? We both need the right and the left. And in fact, they're constantly working all the time. And it's best when they're really friends and allies with each other so that they don't come into conflict with each other. Sometimes you can experience them as conflict, especially if that left brain energy is in its more judgmental way of being, which it can be. I mean, the gate of correction is in the logic circuit, and it can have an edge to it of being very judgmental, very, like critiquing. And so you want for it not to have that kind of critiquing or judgmental energy, especially in relationship to what you might be experiencing that's coming in through the sensing circuit. The sensing circuit, it gives us a felt sense, and a felt sense is a really great intelligence or capacity to foster in yourself or to develop in yourself if you don't already have it. It's something that I've kind of always had. I'm not a very visual person. I'm very auditory, which is in my design. And then I also have a felt sense, which is kind of ironic because I only have one gate in the whole sensing circuit that is defined. But nonetheless, I feel very connected to the sensing circuit. And the felt sense enables us to tune in energetically in a way that is outside of what we might think of as this thinking tower, right? As we come out of that thinking tower, we come down into the body and we come into the energy field. And so the felt sense helps us to develop a sense of our energy field and of the energy around us. And that is what right-brained energy can do, is it can help us to get in touch with that auric field, that magnetic field, and also to tap into that unified field, which of course is the all that is. So we have our own aspect of that, that is our own energy field, that is a center of consciousness within the one life, within the all that is. And that is what the sensing circuit can help us to tap into. Whereas the logic circuit is much more of that thinking brain. And also, according to this new book by Bolte Tayler, the emotional aspect of the left brain has to do with the past and the future. So it's not about that present moment. So the emotions that we might be getting from the left brain tend to be kind of focused on the past. And very often the things that we focus on from the past that are emotional are ones that are more traumatic or more wounding or things that we haven't digested and healed yet, because that tends to be the things that keep pulling us back. Unfortunately, it's not the happier moments that often pull us back. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times we have to have more focus in order to be able to do that. So if you find yourself getting pulled into emotions of the past, know that that's the emotional part of your left brain. And you can shift to becoming into the present moment. Of course, this is what meditation practices are about. This is what I focus on when I'm doing my Kundalini yoga practices every morning, is how do I develop my felt sense of being here in the present moment so that I'm not bouncing around from the past and projecting into the future. So these are different aspects of our brain, and we need all of them. The question is, how do we access the superpowers that each of them offers, and to be able to honor the parts that are beneficial to us and not have them be either contradicting each other or in conflict with each other. Because the truth is that we are complex beings with many different sides, and we need to have all of these pieces of us. We can't get along just with the left brain or just with the right brain. We need all of it. As we go forward this week, the Earth is lighting up the gate 64. So we want to ground ourselves in divine transference, or in our ability to receive from superconsciousness, whether it's images or feelings or colors or sounds or whatever it is, that's not going to be particularly logical, right? Okay. We want to be able to ground ourselves in that, so that then we can open up our curiosity. And we're going to have the sun and we're going to have Jupiter as our allies to help us to open up our curiosity. And the more open we can be and the less judgmental we can be, the more we're going to be able to receive the benefits that are coming to us from both sides. And the more that you can have these different types of energies that are coming in, dance with each other. Imagine them perhaps as different characters. That's in fact what Bolte Tayler does in her book, as she talks about them as different characters. Let's say that there are different characters and they have different ways of perceiving the world and different ways that they want to play inside of your life. How would you invite them to share with you the wisdom that they have, that they're bringing in from superconsciousness, that can help you to maybe shift some of the ways you felt a little stuck or stagnant in your life, or maybe to get you moving if you've been procrastinating at all, or maybe if you've just been kind of setting back because you're not feeling like you are certain about how to move forward. Neither of these are going to give you certainty, but they will open up possibilities. And I hope that you can just kind of put certainty to the side, because honestly, I don't really think certainty exists. I know that people who have defined ajnas have a tendency to be certain, but as my mentor Karen likes to say, and she has a defined ajna, so she can say this. She said, yeah, we have a sense of certainty, but it doesn't mean we're right. And I have known people with defined ajnas who have a sense of certainty, and they're not necessarily right. So certainty, I think, is questionable, but we can have a sense of possibility and leaning into possibility. I think we need this so much today because of so much polarization that we've been through, so much isolation that we've been through. We really need to kind of open up and lean into possibility. The world is starting to open up again after the pandemic, or in this stage of the pandemic. And so what is possible? And you can be seeding with generative questions, whatever your type is. You can be seeding things that you're curious about. Oh, I'm so curious about this. I really would like to know more about that. I'd love to have an experience of this or that. So you can be throwing that out into super consciousness. And then if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you're going to be seeing what shows up in your outer reality that you get to respond to. If you're a projector, you get to see what gets recognized or what you're invited into. As a manifestor, you can feel that creative impulse sending you in a certain way. And as a reflector, you can be reflecting back to you what it is that you're feeling that is important. So whatever your type is, you can take advantage of the energies that are coming in through the head now. And watch out if you start to get a little overwhelmed, if you get a little bit of a busy head. One of the things you can do if that happens is you can try lying down, because when you lie down, it'll help drain some of that energy out. That's often a recommendation for people who have a defined head and ajna. If they're trying to meditate and there's just too many thoughts going on up here, is to try lying down. So if you get too much going on up here, you could try lying down and just see how you can digest and integrate what's come in and take a little bit of that pressure off. A comment on what's happening with Mars and Venus right now. They are cycling through different gates in the human design mandala side by side. The point I want to make about this is, in some respects, Venus and Mars are the divine feminine, the divine masculine. They are our womanly qualities and our manly qualities. And of course, we all have all of it, right? So it's not something about what kind of body you have. It's really about the energy that you are embodying and expressing. And often these are perceived to be polar opposites, right? Almost like the yin and yang. And my suggestion is you see how they're dancing with each other, right? Because they're dancing together inside of the different gates. But perhaps more important isn't the specific gate so much as the dance that they are doing with each other. So just as I was talking before about the dance of the right brain and the left brain, is what is the dance that's going on between your divine masculine and your divine feminine right now? How is that feeling in your body? How is it showing up in your life? How can you have these so-called opposites? I'm not sure that they are opposites, but in any event, these two different kinds of energies, how can they come to support each other? How can they be compatible? How can they stimulate each other and provoke each other to be more of what they already are? And also, how can they come to taste a little bit of what the other one is like so that they can feel a little bit more full? That's something you could just play around with yourself for the next few weeks as they continue to cycle side by side through the mandala. Okay, that's my report for this week. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.